The rain was pouring down as I stood on my brother's front porch, my small suitcase at my feet. Through the beveled glass of their expensive front door, I could see my sister-in-law Victoria's face contorted with rage. "You're not part of this family," she screamed, her perfectly manicured finger pointing at me accusingly. "Get out and don't come back. We don't need your kind here anymore." My brother Michael stood behind her, silent and uncomfortable, but making no move to defend me. After 28 years of being my protective older brother, he had chosen his wife's side. Again. I picked up my suitcase, surprisingly calm despite being thrown out of the house I'd been living in since Dad's funeral 3 months ago. "Okay, Victoria, you win. I'll go. Good riddance," she called after me as I walked away in the rain. "And don't think you'll be getting anything when the will is read tomorrow." Little did they know, Dad's lawyer Mr. Harrison was already on his way to deliver a letter that would change everything. I'm Grace Anderson, 28 years old, and this is the story of how my father's final message exposed the truth about family, loyalty, and the real meaning of inheritance. To understand how I ended up homeless in the rain, you need to know about the complicated dynamics of the Anderson family. Dad was a self-made man who built Anderson Construction from nothing into a $15 million company. Mom passed away when I was 10 and Michael was 15, leaving Dad to raise us alone. While Michael followed in Dad's footsteps, getting his business degree and joining the company, I took after Mom, pursuing art and teaching. Dad supported both our choices equally, always telling us that success wasn't about what you did, but how you did it. "Grace," he'd say, watching me paint in my studio, "your mother would be so proud. You have her spirit, always seeing the beauty in everything." Then Victoria came into our lives. Michael met her at a charity gala 5 years ago, and from the beginning, she made it clear that she had plans for the Anderson family legacy. Beautiful, sophisticated, and ruthlessly ambitious, Victoria saw Michael as her ticket to social status and financial security. "The Anderson name means something in this city," she'd say, rearranging the furniture in our family home even before the wedding. "We need to maintain certain standards." By standards, she meant her standards. My teaching job and artistic pursuits didn't fit her vision of what an Anderson should be. She began a subtle campaign to distance me from the family, especially after Dad got sick. The cancer diagnosis came suddenly, just 6 months ago. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors gave him 3 months at best. Victoria immediately stepped in, taking charge of Dad's care and, more importantly, his access to visitors. "Dad needs rest," she'd say when I tried to visit. "He can't be disturbed right now." Or, "The doctors say too many visitors will tire him out." Somehow, her friends from the country club never seemed to count as too many visitors. What Victoria didn't know was that Dad and I had our own private communications. Every morning at 6 a.m., before she arrived for her devoted daughter-in-law performance, Dad and I would have coffee together in his hospital room. Those quiet moments became precious as his condition deteriorated. 2 weeks before he passed away, Dad seemed unusually alert during our morning coffee. "Grace," he said, his voice weak but determined, "there's something we need to discuss." He reached for a manila envelope on his bedside table. "I've written some letters. Things that need to be said after I'm gone. Mr. Harrison has the originals, but I want you to know they exist. Dad, you don't need to." He squeezed my hand. "Yes, I do. I've watched everything that's been happening. I see how Victoria treats you, how Michael has changed. I may be sick, but I'm not blind." Tears welled up in my eyes. "I can handle it, Dad. Don't worry about me. I know you can handle it. You're stronger than anyone knows. But there are things that need to be set right, and I've made arrangements to do that." Before he could say more, we heard Victoria's voice in the hallway. I quickly helped Dad hide the envelope, and moments later she swept in, all designer perfume and forced cheerfulness. Dad passed away a week later, with all of us by his bedside. Victoria took charge of the funeral arrangements, turning what should have been a dignified farewell into a social networking event. She even had the guest list revised to exclude many of Dad's old friends who didn't meet her social standards. After the funeral, she insisted I move in with them, temporarily, while the estate was settled. I soon realized this was just to keep an eye on me and demonstrate her control over the family. The final straw came tonight when she found me in Dad's old study, looking through his photographs. "What are you doing in here?" she demanded. "These things don't belong to you anymore." "I'm just looking at family pictures, Victoria. They're memories, not assets." Her face turned ugly. "Everything in this house is an asset, and they all belong to Michael now. You're just the poor relation who never amounted to anything. Your father was embarrassed by you, you know. Always talking about your little paintings and your teaching job like they meant something." That's when I finally stood up to her. Dad was never embarrassed by me. He supported my choices, just like he supported Michael's. Family meant everything to him. "Family?" she laughed. "You're not family anymore. Michael, tell her. Tell her it's time for her to go." And Michael, my big brother who used to defend me against playground bullies, who taught me to ride a bike and checked under my bed for monsters, just stood there silently. So I found myself out in the rain, with nowhere to go except my small apartment above the local coffee shop. The one Victoria always sneered at as quaint, not a compliment coming from her. But Dad's words kept echoing in my mind. There are things that need to be set right. The next morning, I arrived at Mr. Harrison's office for the will reading, ignoring Victoria's triumphant smirk as I took a seat in the corner. Michael wouldn't meet my eyes. "Before we begin," Mr. Harrison said, "I have a letter that Mr. Anderson instructed me to read first." He pulled out a familiar manila envelope. Victoria's smile faltered slightly. This wasn't part of her script. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat and began to read. "My dear children. If you're hearing this, then I'm no longer with you. But there are truths that need to be spoken, even from beyond the grave. Michael, my son, you have your mother's looks and my head for business, but somewhere along the way, you've lost your heart. I've watched you change over the past few years, seen you choose status over sincerity, ambition over authenticity. You've forgotten what I taught you about true success, that it's not about what you have, but who you are. Victoria, you came into our family bringing both beauty and poison. You saw us as stepping stones to social status, saw our name as a brand to be marketed rather than a legacy to be honored. You thought I didn't notice how you manipulated, how you schemed, how you tried to erase Grace from our family picture. But I saw everything. Grace, my darling daughter, you have endured more than any father would want for his child. You've faced dismissal and derision with grace worthy of your name. You've stayed true to your mother's artistic spirit and your own gentle heart, even when it cost you dearly. You've proven that true strength isn't about power or control. It's about remaining authentic in the face of pressure to change. Now, about the inheritance." Victoria leaned forward eagerly, but Mr. Harrison paused to pull out another document. "Before I continue with Mr. Anderson's letter," he said, "I should mention that we have video evidence of certain conversations that took place in Mr. Anderson's hospital room. Conversations about attempting to influence the contents of his will, about plans to disinherit Grace, about intended misuse of company funds." The color drained from Victoria's face. Michael looked confused, then alarmed. Mr. Harrison continued reading. "The entire value of Anderson Construction and all associated assets has been placed in a trust. The trustee of this estate will be the person who demonstrates true understanding of our family's values over the next year. Grace will continue her work teaching art and pursuing her passion for painting. Michael and Victoria will work under Grace's supervision at the company, learning what it means to build something rather than just profit from it. After 1 year, Grace will decide how the assets should be distributed, based on what she observes about each person's character and growth. To ensure compliance, all company decisions during this period must have Grace's approval. Any attempt to circumvent these conditions will result in immediate forfeiture of all claims to the estate. Remember, true inheritance isn't about money or property. It's about values, about character, about the legacy of love and integrity I hope to pass on to you both. Choose wisely. Love. Dad." The silence in the room was absolute. Victoria's face had gone from pale to mottled red. Michael sat stunned, as if seeing the past few years of his life in a new light. "This is ridiculous," Victoria finally exploded. "She's just a teacher. She knows nothing about running a construction company." "Actually, Mr. Harrison interjected, Ms. Anderson has been taking business management courses online for the past 2 years, at her father's suggestion. She's also been quietly shadowing various department heads at the company, learning the operation from the ground up. Mr. Anderson was quite thorough in preparing for this transition. I sat quietly, remembering all those early morning conversations with Dad, all the extra hours I'd put in studying business while maintaining my teaching job. Dad had seen this coming long before any of us. Michael. Victoria turned to my brother. Do something. This can't be legal. But Michael was looking at me, really looking at me, for the first time in years. All those mornings you spent with Dad in the hospital, you weren't just having coffee, were you? I shook my head. He was teaching me, right up until the end, teaching me about business, about people, about what really matters. While I was listening to Victoria's plans for rebranding the company and expanding into luxury developments. You were missing Dad's real legacy, I finished softly. The next few weeks were challenging. Victoria threatened legal action, but Mr. Harrison's video evidence of her hospital room conversations quickly shut that down. She then tried to convince Michael to challenge the will, but something had shifted in my brother. Maybe it was seeing the video of his wife plotting to cut me out of the family while Dad was dying. Maybe it was realizing how far he'd strayed from the values our parents had taught us. Whatever the reason, Michael began to change. It started small. He began coming to my office, Dad's old office, early in the mornings. Like I used to visit Dad in the hospital. We'd have coffee and talk about the company, about our childhood, about who we wanted to be rather than what we wanted to have. Victoria, faced with the choice between compliance and losing everything, grudgingly accepted her new position. I assigned her to work with our community outreach program, helping plan affordable housing projects, about as far from her luxury development dreams as possible. The year that followed taught us all something about family, legacy, and the true meaning of inheritance. Michael rediscovered his passion for actual construction, spending time at job sites and working with the crews like Dad used to do. Victoria, surprisingly, found she had a talent for community relations once she stopped focusing on status and started seeing the real impact of our work. As for me, I continued teaching art while learning to lead the company Dad had built. My students even helped design a mural for our new corporate headquarters, a blend of art and construction that seemed to perfectly represent our family's journey. When the year was up, I made my decision about the trust. The company would be shared between Michael and me, with Victoria receiving a smaller portion contingent on her continued work with community projects. More importantly, we established a foundation in Dad's name to provide art education in underserved communities. Dad's letter arrived at exactly the right moment, not just to protect the company, but to save our family. Victoria still struggles sometimes with her old attitudes, but she's learning. Michael has become my brother again, the one who used to protect me rather than stand silently while I was attacked. Today, Anderson Construction continues to grow, but with a new focus on building community along with buildings. The wall of my office holds two treasured items: Dad's letter, framed as a reminder of what matters most, and a painting I did of our family home, complete with Dad standing on the porch, coffee cup in hand, watching his legacy unfold. Sometimes, when I'm working late, I could swear I hear his voice. Remember, Grace, true inheritance isn't about what you have. It's about who you are, I whisper back, knowing that this moment, this understanding, is the real treasure he left us.